You see, Bill, I knew a week before she died I was gonna kill her.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at the creepiest pieces of trivia regarding the world's most famous serial killers.
What? What's going on? Do you know this kid? Yes, sir. This is my boyfriend.
Robert Pickton may have sold human meat to the public.
One of the country's most notorious prisoners is dead. Robert Pickton has died from injuries sustained earlier in the month in a Quebec prison assault.
Canadian serial killer Robert Pickton is basically a real-life Sweeney Todd. And yes, it is every bit as horrifying as it sounds. Pickton inherited his family's pig farm in the early 90s and began using it as a killing ground. Between 1995 and 2001, Pickton murdered at least 26 women at the farm, but he would later confess to 49. During the investigation, authorities discovered human remains mixed with ground pork in freezers on his property. This led to speculation that he had unknowingly or intentionally processed human flesh along with his pig meat. A health notice was then issued to the public, warning that anyone who had consumed pork from Pickton's farm might have unknowingly consumed human flesh.
The families of these victims have very much been involved in advocacy even in the years since. Even just a few months ago, we're holding a vigil outside the pig farm where some of those remains were found.
Richard Chase drank his victim's blood.
He wants to explore the body. He wants to drink her blood.
Known as the Vampire of Sacramento, Richard Chase earned his moniker owing to his habit of consuming human blood. Active for a brief period in the late 70s, Chase murdered 6 people while suffering from severe mental illness.
He needed extensive care. He was not receiving as much care as he should have gotten.
According to reports, Chase consumed the blood of most of his victims and would proceed to walk around the neighborhood in a messy stupor. Chase reportedly believed that his own blood was either turning into a dusty powder or that its supply was somehow depleting and that drinking fresh blood would save him from demise. And when police investigated Chase's apartment, they found many different items covered in blood, including cups and drinking utensils.
I found a used yogurt cup, a paper cup the yogurt came in, which had zigzag prints on it, and apparently had been drinking the blood or doing something with the blood in that cup.
John Wayne Gacy kept bodies in his crawl space.
Now he'll face his biggest challenge, putting names and faces to the bones found under John Wayne Gacy's house.
Perhaps the most famous bit of trivia about John Wayne Gacy, besides the fact that he worked as a party clown, was that he kept corpses in the crawl space of his Chicago house. Gacy murdered at least 33 men inside his house throughout the 1970s, often luring them there with promises of a job in his construction business.
So you've never done construction work before?
No. Well, like I said, it's just stuff around the house, helping my ma, you know.
Well, don't sweat it. There's nothing to it. And honest to God, you got the right build for it.
He buried 29 of these victims in the crawl space, layering quicklime and periodically spreading concrete in an attempt to mask the smell of their decomposing bodies. It clearly didn't work, as multiple neighbors inquired about the rancid smell coming from Gacy's house, but he would often blame it on dead rodents and plumbing issues.
What happened to, what happened in the Bukovic case? Where was he picked up, and how did he get to the house, and what happened with him?
I don't want to go into the other, the 5 that I know about. Just take it that I did. Bukovic is not one that I killed, so I don't know nothing about him.
Jack the Ripper allegedly sent a kidney through the mail.
Try to stop him, Inspector. This arrived with this afternoon's post.
Not much is known about Jack the Ripper, as he was never caught. What we do know is that the District of Whitechapel established a vigilance committee to monitor and investigate the crimes, and that this committee was inundated with taunting letters supposedly written by Jack. Most of these letters have been debunked as hoaxes, but one, titled From Hell, is often considered to be real.
As police investigators frantically round up possible suspects, a mysterious letter arrives at London's Central News Agency that appears to be from the killer himself.
It was sent to the committee's chairman, George Lusk, and contained half of a human kidney. The letter states that it was taken from one of Jack's victims, and that the other half was fried and consumed. Debate continues to rage regarding the authenticity of the letter, but it is undoubtedly one of the creepiest aspects of Ripper lore.
We demand something be done, and done tonight.
From hell. Well, at least they got the address right.
Ed Kemper killed members of his own family.
In the end, I ran away to live with my father, but he didn't want me either. So They packed me off to live with my grandma. She thought I was a freak.
Is that why you shot her?
While he's known as the co-ed killer owing to his penchant for murdering college students, Ed Kemper also killed 3 members of his own family. At the age of 15, Kemper was sent to live with his paternal grandparents in North Fork, California, following a troubled childhood. However, continued disagreements and frustrations resulted in Kemper murdering both of his grandparents on August 27, 1964.
It started coming to a head again, so I went back down. I ran away back down there. And then a month later, I'm up living with my grandparents in the mountains, and 10 months later, I murdered them.
And then, following his co-ed killing spree, Kemper murdered his own mother, Clarnell Strandberg, on April 20th, 1973. But he didn't just kill her. He also performed some extremely disturbing acts with her body. Tired of killing, Kemper then called the police on himself and was sent to prison, where he remains to this day.
If there's one thing I know, it's this. A mother should not scorn her own son. If a woman humiliates her little boy, he will become hostile and violent and debased. Period.
Israel Keyes staged a ransom photo with a corpse.
We did spend a fair amount of time talking about his crimes and his offenses as well, and those times were definitely very chilling to hear him talk about what he's done.
On February 1st, 2012, Israel Keyes kidnapped 18-year-old Samantha Koenig from the Alaska coffee stand where she worked. He then took her home and murdered her before embarking on a cruise with his family. After returning from his trip, Keyes sewed Koenig's eyes open with fishing line, making it appear as if she were alive. He then put a newspaper into her hands, effectively staging a ransom photo and demanding $30,000 from her family.
Every serial killer, including, I believe, Mr. Keyes, are not crazy. You cannot be that organized and deliberate and fit any legal definition of insanity.
After the money was deposited, Keyes disposed of Koenig's body in a lake. Giving false hope to her family was exceedingly cruel. But luckily, it was this money that proved to be Keyes' downfall, as police finally arrested him after tracking his cash withdrawals at various ATMs.
He talked about the rush that he got out of it, the adrenaline and kind of the high from doing it, and I think, unfortunately, I think he enjoyed what he was doing.
Ted Bundy would return to his crime scenes.
You're a bright young man. If you made a good lawyer, I'd love to have you practice in front of me, but you went another way, partner.
Despite his charming veneer, Ted Bundy is one of the most psychotic monsters in modern history. His true body count is unknown, but police believe that he is responsible for at least 36 murders.
Sure, I get angry. I get very, very angry and indignant. I don't like being locked up for something I didn't do, and I don't like my liberty taken away, and I don't like being treated like an animal, and I don't like people walking around and ogling me like I'm some sort of weirdo, because I'm not.
But it's more than just his body count that makes Bundy so infamous. He was known to return to his crime scenes, often to reposition the bodies, groom their hair, and apply makeup to their faces, and dress them in different clothes. But that's certainly not all he did. Perhaps his most infamous hiding place was Taylor Mountain in Washington, where several of his victims were ultimately found. Bundy later admitted that he hid the bodies there hoping that the wildlife would ultimately claim them.
By October 1974, 5 more bodies had been found, but most of them had decomposed or were just scattered bones. Bundy had left no clues, and he was long gone.
Jeffrey Dahmer tried to make zombies.
Oh, good. I was hoping you were gonna die. We can try something really fun.
Perhaps the most infamous serial killer in American history, Jeffrey Dahmer tried turning his victims into submissive and mindless beings who would stay with him without resistance. To do this, Dahmer drilled holes into his victims' skulls and injected various substances, such as hydrochloric acid or boiling water, directly into their brains.
Not gonna hurt. Brain doesn't have any nerve endings. This is still a little hot water with some acid in it. Okay?
The belief was that this operation would induce a permanent zombie-like state, but the experiments never worked and the victims ultimately died from the toxic effects of the chemicals. The most famous example is that of Conorak Synthesomphone, who briefly escaped Dahmer's apartment following the gruesome operation. However, Dahmer was able to convince police that Synthesomphone was his drunk boyfriend, and he was returned to Dahmer's care, where he was subsequently murdered.
You guys, I don't know what you guys do, just take care. Okay? Yeah, I will. Thanks, officers. Sorry again.
Albert Fish wrote a letter to his victim's mother.
My dear Mrs. Budd,
Well, what's it say, Edward?
on Sunday, June the 3rd, 1928, we had lunch.
A heinous serial killer active in the 1920s, Albert Fish murdered at least 3 people, but he is a suspect in many other cases. In May of 1928, Fish murdered his final confirmed victim, Grace Budd, in an abandoned New York house. 6 years later, in November 1934, Budd's mother received an anonymous letter, which is now attributed to Fish.
I took her to an old house in Westchester, which I had already picked out. When we got there, I told her to remain outside.
The letter is extraordinarily graphic, with Fish boasting and explaining the morbid details of her daughter's murder. The letter was handed over to the police, who confirmed the details. But this letter led to Fish's downfall, as police were able to track the envelope to his rooming house, where they ultimately arrested him. Fish then confessed that he murdered Budd and sent the horrific letter.
You believe him? What he said he did to the girl after he killed her?
Everything else in his confession and the letter to Mrs. Budd checks out.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. The Toolbox Killers tape is used to train FBI agents.
You struck Miss Lamp with a sledgehammer. Do you recall the sledgehammer which was introduced?
Yes, sir, I recall it.
Lawrence Bittaker and Roy Norris are collectively known as the Toolbox Killers. They kidnapped and murdered 5 girls in the summer of 1979, often subjecting them to horrific mistreatment in the process. Their methods often involved the use of household tools, hence the name Toolbox Killers. Their final victim was Shirley Ledford, and the killers captured her attack on tape. Norris has spoken about the tape, claiming that no actress could ever reproduce the guttural sound of a primal scream, and that no one, quote, could listen to more than a full 60 seconds of it. Indeed, this tape is now in the possession of the FBI and is used to desensitize agents to the sounds of murder.
When his tape recording of one murder was played in court, people rushed outside and vomited.
Do you have any other creepy facts for us? Let us know in the comments below.
Saying I've wanted to kill my mother since I was 8 years old, and I'm not proud of that.